going to start a couple of minutes later to make sure that everybody who's coming in from lunch definitely can be with us for the start. So thank you for your patience. We will get underway in just 2 or 3 minutes from now. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, dear audience, and a very warm welcome to this civil society panel at the EBRD 2024 annual meeting. I'm Melinda Crane, and it is a great honor to accompany you as we explore how civil society groups can help bridge the divide and work together to build transparency and resilience, not only in Armenia, but across South Caucasus and the larger region. And before we continue, I'm just going to request that we open those doors once again, because we did start really now quite on time, and just in case people are still coming from lunch, can we keep the doors open? I don't think it's going to disturb anybody outside, and that way we can still get late arrivals into the room. Dear audience, as many of you undoubtedly experience in your own work, civil society actors are facing pushback and shrinking spaces in many places, both here in the region and worldwide. The EBRD sees engagement with civil society as a very important dimension of its work to foster an inclusive transition toward market economies that are also sustainable, participatory, and equitable, which is why the bank invited civil society organizations to lead and organize this panel in conjunction with the Center for International Private Enterprise. It brings together representatives from NGOs, as well as the public and private sectors, to explore what's needed to enhance the institutional, operational, and financial capacities of civil society representatives and organizations, to talk about how civil society's participation in decision-making and advocacy can be protected and strengthened, and to share perspectives on how the actors represented here can more effectively collaborate amongst themselves and with others to boost cross-sectoral and cross-border impact. Those are our questions that we want to explore over the next hour, and we're very eager to hear from you as well, dear audience. So before I introduce our panel, let me quickly tell you how you can take part in the discussion. You will see a barcode. There you go. Yes, you will see a barcode there. You can scan it. That will take you to our Slido website, or you can type in the code 307-0309 on slido.com and then write your question in there. Or at the end, you can raise your hand and we will bring you a microphone, and we can do it the old school way. And I will bring in your questions during the last 15 to 20 minutes of the discussion. Also, we have interpretation in this room. We have Channel 1 for English, Channel 2 for Russian, and Channel 3 for Armenian. And now it's my great pleasure to welcome our speakers, and I'll keep the introduction short so that we can maximize our time for exchange. And I'll start here with Gayane Makachyan. She is Director of Civil Society Programs at the Eurasia Partnership Foundation. It's wonderful to have you with us, Gayane. Next to her is Armen Baldrian. He is CEO at Unicomp CJSC. He's also the president at the Union of Employers of Information and Communication Technologies. It also has an acronym, UEICT. Welcome, Armen. Great to have you. Seated next to him is Orizia Lutsevich. She is Deputy Director, Russia and Eurasia Program at the head of the Ukraine Forum and head of the Ukraine Forum at Chatham House. It's excellent that you can be with us here. Thank you so much. And finally, I'm pleased to introduce Luisa Ayvazyan Galantarian. She is head of office, Armenia, Center for International Private Enterprise. I know you can tell I've been practicing these names, and I'm not quite there yet, which is why we're going to stay with first names for the panel, right? So Let me just start out with a round of questions to all of you to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you're facing. And I'll start out with Guyana, if I may. And just very simply, what are the top 3 challenges for the development and the functioning of a vibrant civil society in Armenia, but also in the Caucasus as a whole?
Thank you, Melinda. Thank you, everybody, for being here and the opportunity to speak about civil societies, both challenges and opportunities. I would like to start elaborating on the word civil society, first of all, before going to challenges. We know that it's composed of the word civil, and there are different definitions. I'm not going there, but I would like to focus on the word of civil and civility. And the question we often ask ourselves as a civil society organization, what type of civility is it that the world needs to be called a robust democracy? And this is where we are fighting with finding out where are the boundaries of civility. Because we live in the region, and not only in the region, but broader in the world, unfortunately, we live in the situation of disturbing times when we have evidence of uncivility blossoming rather than civility. And this is a specific period. Civil society has the power, potential of trying to promote what we call civility, but at the same time is usually shrunk in between various government interests. So the challenge is to understand what is the civility and what are the instruments of promoting such civility, despite the fact that the world is changing towards taking a shift towards the negative developments, and at the same time maintaining being faithful to the real values of the civil society. So this is one of the challenges. This brings about the other issue, which is the divergent political and geopolitical aspirations of various states in this region. We would like to believe that if we take South Caucasus, for example, it's only 3 republics, culturally pretty close to each other historically, etc. But we have political systems within this region with absolutely diverse aspirations and directions. We have autocracies blossoming, we have democracies, semi-democracies, we have some kind of a fusion of democracy with autocracy, etc. And we witness the power dynamics that even the democracies tend to go back, shift, and fall into autocracy. Why? Because one of the greatest aspirations for the states unfortunately become maintenance of power. Mm-hmm. So how do you deal in such situation when the purpose of the civil society across the region is almost the same? It is to provide for the well-being and for the assets and values of the societies, but at the same time, how do you deal with in such diverse environments where enabling environment for civil society is absolutely different? There are restrictions imposed by the governments, and we are right now witnessing the events happening in Georgia, for example. Although the governments do not frame the restrictive laws as restrictive laws, they frame them as, instruments for more transparency, accountability, etc., which are generally required for all. However, we do know very well what happens in such situations when such laws are passed, because we have examples of what's happening. Now, I'm coming to another challenge. These diverse environments is another challenge that we're working in, and unfortunately these environments are not changing for themselves. The bad examples are very infectious. So there's no solidarity and lack of cooperation among civil society actors to at least try to provide their space, because there are some enabling partnerships and agreements and strategies in the region. All of the countries in the region, almost all of them in different ways, have accession agreements with the European Union, almost membership agreements with the European Union, etc. And we would like to believe that in such situations, taking a shift towards the negative developments would be less probable. But they're happening because the power dynamics are taking the governments to try to take measures so that they're less criticized, there's less accountability for the governments, and less autonomy and autocracy and authority for the decisions, for monopolizing the decision-making processes. Coming back to more specifically about another challenge is the fact that the civil society very easily falls a victim of being blamed to detract the society from generally interesting and important issues in the society. For example, if the civil society at some point, right now you probably have witnessed the mass protests in the streets of Armenia. The mass protests, I'm not going into political analysis here, they're very complex and they will not be comprehended easily, but the mass protests are a result of lack of communication of the state strategies, what is called in the peace processes, with the public. Because things are happening, the decisions, actions are monopolized. Public is not aware of what's happening, what are the consequences, what are the security measures, what are the protective mechanisms, etc. So it brings the public out to the streets trying to seek, if not the solution, but at least raise interest that there is a society here who wants to know what their fate will be. So this is also part of the civil society. It's a challenge because the government does not go into dialogue with society easily. This brings about another challenge, the consolidation power of the civil society organizations within the specific country and within the region. For example, when the foreign influence law was being adopted in Georgia, there were specific statements by Armenian civil society organizations, but there was not a big possibility of consolidating power across the region and perhaps shift the interest of the international community to influence the government's decisions, perhaps sometimes rigidly trying to influence those, because we are not guaranteed that we will be the next. Now, these are more of an external kind of challenges. Internally, I think we have a huge issue, which is the lack of professionalism, lack of sustainable resources for doing our work better, because we depend on projects. We all work on a project basis. Mm-hmm. We have our vision. We do want to understand what the society really needs, deep dive into those needs, find resources to tackle these needs. However, in such difficult conditions, I think civil society lacks professionalism, capacity. Mm-hmm. Of course, that can be solved, but it's a different topic. Thank you.
That was a long list of challenges and some very major ones, and I will defer from asking follow-up questions, although it would be tempting to do so, but I'm very much hoping that the audience will be asking their own questions in regard to a number of the different areas that you've mentioned. But certainly what we're hearing is the shrinking space for debate and discussion, also the constraints that are posed on that. Then, as you said, difficulties around coordination and making it harder for organizations to coordinate with one another, and also discrediting civil society as an actor also in terms of its own communications and informational capacities. So thank you very much. Let me move on now to Armin. And tech obviously is one of the key tools that can help civil society to overcome some of those challenges. Also, just the very basics of providing data and information, for example. Could you share some examples of how CSOs are using technology both to foster citizens' participation in decision-making, in tracing accountability, in advocacy, and especially also to integrating underserved communities?
First of all,
microphone? Yes.
First of all, thank you for leading our panel. And thank you for question, but this question is for very long conversation and maybe for separate event. So to save your time, I will use some of my notes. Technology offers several ways to bridge gaps in citizen participation, advocacy, and accountability, especially in rural areas and underserved communities. It can provide excellent tools, as you already mentioned, like digital platforms. Except for G2C platforms, user-friendly digital platforms should be developed to help citizens to participate in decision-making processes, and especially to provide feedback and engage in discussion with policymakers. And now I see some of my colleagues are sitting here and doing that good job. This platform must be designed to be accessible even in low resources area, because not in all rural areas we have good internet connectivity and good equipment. And this is one of the problems. Digital platforms also can play important role as a collaboration, advocacy tools, online learning platforms, which is very important. And the next one is data visualization and transparency. They are very important factors in developing the civil society. Technology can be used to make government data more accessible and understandable for citizens. Data visualization, interactive maps, and dashboards can be used to help citizens better understand complex issues and government policy and activities. And also Guyana mentioned that here we have a gap, but there we didn't use technologies. This is a problem. Mm-hmm. Social media and online communities became main factor today. As the collaboration is the most important part in development of civil society, use of social media and digital communities plays a significant role in civil society development. They are fostering dialogue, raising awareness, mobilizing support for advocacy. It is very, very important to develop local social platforms to engage more citizens in rural areas, and to be more focused on regional collaboration and problem solving. Also, social media more and more often is used for accountability of officials by exposing corruption. Here we have many challenges too. First of all, I like to mention digital literacy and digital divide. In this situation, besides the government, the key player must be NGOs, professional unions, civil society organizations. And also Guyana mentioned low level of collaboration between participants and between civil society organizations, tech companies, government, and local communities, which limits creation of effective solutions, technical solutions, others to specific challenges. Managing of this problem is very important. Involvement of professional unions and CSOs is key factor for success. And I like to speak about next challenge. This is information security and cybersecurity. This is much more important for citizens and CSOs because they haven't enough skills to manage the situation. Very important to keep balance between level of usage of digital tools and cybersecurity risks. Transfer of cybersecurity knowledge, analysis of cybersecurity incidents and risk are game-changing factors here. Citizens must have enough knowledge to choose between comfort and security. And the government, we CSOs, must take care of it. Those are only few opportunities and challenges of using of tech in civil society development. All of them need special attention and specific solutions. I think we can speak.
Yes, we will definitely pick up on those messages. Thank you very, very much. That was a very good overview to get us started. Let me go to Louisa now and ask to tell a little bit more about partnerships. We've heard both Gayane and Amin talking about the importance of partnering and collaboration, but also some of the challenges, as Gayane mentioned. So could you share an example or two of collaborative endeavors amongst civil society, the public and private sector and or international partners, and perhaps also speak to some of the difficulties that have to be negotiated for those to work?
Thank you for the question, and thank you for inviting me to this panel. But if you allow me, before addressing the concrete question that you have, I just have a small remark to what Gayane mentioned. As you heard, Gayane brought the example of Armenia and mentioned that there is a lack of communication in between of the decision makers and the civil society. I would just like to add, from my perspective, there is in all the three governments of this region, it's not only about the lack of communication, but it's also about the lack of desire to hear what the civil society wants to say. So it's the lack of desire to take into account what the civil society considers while taking the decisions. Just a small remark. And so while talking about the partnerships, yes, so I do think that those partnerships that are based on human rights, on mutual benefit for all the stakeholders, those partnerships that are based on human dignity really play a crucial role in developing developing the country, the region, in bringing the progress in all the sectors and contexts. So it's obvious for everyone that partnerships really bring diverse expertise, diverse resources, diverse prospects and opportunities for all the stakeholders who are part of the partnership. And I won't speak generally about what the benefits of the good partnerships are. As an example, I can bring an example from the Armenian reality. So with the support of my organization several years ago, we have created the so-called Business Integrity Club. This is the place where the civil society, the private sector, represented by associations, unions, business membership organizations, and think tanks and chambers, they came together around one same goal: to bring the business integrity to Armenian reality, to advocate for anti-corruption reforms, to advocate for corporate governance. So, of course, if the members of the club would advocate personally on behalf of their own organizations, their voices won't be heard on the level as they are heard in the framework of the collective action initiative. I can bring another example of the success we had in Georgia. So several years ago there we have created its so-called EPAG, which is the Economic Policy Advocacy Collective Action. And there we have about 80 organizations registered. These are the private sector representatives, associations, unions, again, business membership organizations, think tanks, and they do a serious advocacy for the benefit of the SMEs. One great, my beloved example of the collective action and partnership is the program that we call WeChams. This is the program that unites women across about 28 countries of Europe and Eurasia. So it unites women around one same goal, an issue that is to ensure the women economic security and to also promote women gender respective institutions in the countries of all these 28 countries. And the women here partner a lot, and they share expertise, they network, they share lessons learned while launching any project in one of these countries. So what I want to say is that the partnership must be based on mutual benefit for all the stakeholders, must be based on human rights and human dignity. And if this kind of partnership happens in the country, in the region, that's definitely for the country and for the region. If this is a win for one, if this is a win-win strategy for all the stakeholders of the partnership, this can turn into a win-win for the community, for the country, and a win and a victory for the region in general. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then I'll go to Oruzia and essentially link this back to what we heard from Guyana at the outset when she talked about the enormous challenges we're seeing in political systems, not only here in the region, but elsewhere as well, backsliding from democracy. And that in the context of what the president of the EBRD, in her words yesterday evening and also at the donors meeting, referred to as polycrisis. So wars, the climate crisis, health crises, and so on. Seeing all of this fusing into truly a polycrisis, what other means can civil society organizations leverage beyond partnerships or in addition to partnerships, in addition to the latest technologies, in order to try to build resilience for societies and for citizens?
Thank you, Melinda. So first, as an order of introduction, I'm kind of a hybrid, but hybrid in a good sense, because now we're all talking about hybrid threats and hybrid that. Well, I am Ukrainian, but I live in London for the last 12 years. But I remain very closely connected to what is happening in the country. But when we were talking, I also have quite a good connection here to the South Caucasus. I used to live 2 years in Georgia, in Tbilisi, and I came from one end of Europe, where Georgians say Europe started here, to another end of Europe, which is UK. So I will try, so just for you to understand, I'm trying to put all these pieces of puzzle together, and what I say comes a lot informed by recent, tragic, unprovoked aggression, of course, of Russia against Ukraine, and the world of unthinkable actually happening. Although, of course, rationally, I personally believed that Russians will invade. Emotionally, it's very difficult to face the reality. It's one thing, hypothetical reality or opportunity. Another one is when actually missiles and bombs are falling on people's heads. And I came to here from Kyiv. I spent 1 week there talking to various partners and a lot of Ukrainian civil society. And to connect with what Guyana said at the beginning, civil society has power. Where the government wants it, most of the time they don't really want it or not. But the fact is that in democracy, civil society has power. And civil society is one of the ways to put checks and balances on the system. We, and here I say collective post-Soviet countries, come from the totalitarian system where that did not exist, where actually that was repressed, destroyed, people paid life for it, and it was indiscriminate violence. So that background means that we have to fight back, we have to reclaim our power, and this is what a lot of groups in a lot of different countries in different ways have been doing for the last 30 years. Now, I think with this polycrisis that the president was talking about, with the war in Ukraine, with upheavals in Georgia, with the war between Armenia and Azerbaijan, with Russia's attempts to destabilize Moldova, all of this is happening in the EBRD region. And this is not going away, no matter how much we wish for it. And all of us wish for the normal, stable, prosperous world. We are heading into, more impossibles, to expect. And this is where this resilience comes from. It's a kind of a new hip word now. Everybody talks about it. Every other conference has the name resilience in it. So, I mean, I just want to say what it means for the way we approach it in Chatham House, because I've been researching this since 2017. And it's in a way ability, it's like a software if you want. It's not a hardware, it's more of a software that could enable the right functioning of the system under duress. You know that the duress and stress is not going to go away, but you persevere. And actually, the top level of resilience is when you use crisis, war, you know, earthquake, you know, it could be man-made or it could be naturally made, to come to a new level of resilience or new level of functioning that even better than before. And this is why I think Ukraine comes in, because in Ukraine, it's not enough just to come back to the way it was, to survive and to win. And this is what Ukrainian people want. They don't want to capitulate. They don't want to become part of Russian, you know, imperial province. They want to win. And when I am talking to Ukrainian civil society leaders, they actually want to see a system overhaul. Almost like, you know, there's this from Leopard, the book by Lampedusa, where in Italy, when things were the civil war, the book says everything must change for everything to stay the same. So in a lot of our societies, if we want to remain independent countries, a lot of things have to change. So in civil society, you know, there's a lot of talk about this kind of Ukraine miracle of resilience, and I'll be finishing. And it's not a miracle. I don't like actually this word. It's hard work of millions of people that when Putin attacked, Ukraine was at its strongest in the whole history, I would say, of independent Ukraine, of its governance. And one of the main pillars of that, you know, capacity to resist was civil society. By that I mean active citizens, also private sector, also mayors, and people who are not waiting for instructions, even under such difficult situation, they were taking initiative. And this is where civil society is so priceless, and I hope the governments will be willing to share that power, because it's in their interest that citizens in our societies have agency. Because if we as citizens have agency, we have something even more priceless, which is hope. Right. You know, we'll not go into ancient Greek myths where the hope is good or bad, because we can have another session about it. Okay. In Pandora box, that was the only thing that stayed in the box. But wow. I personally think that for resilience, and there was a lot of studies in psychology, why some people make it and some people break it. And those people who believe that their action can improve the life of their immediate people, of their community, of their family, they actually make it. And this is, this is what we see in Ukraine. And even today, as the war goes on, we did a survey in Chatham House of civil society organizations. I'm finishing. More than 200 of them took part in this. When we asked them, what are you doing now? So 70% said we're already involved in recovery. Already. What are you doing? Helping IDPs, helping vulnerable groups, planning recovery with local government officials, working on mental health, and reporting, documenting war crimes. So they are not waiting for the war to be over to do this. And the second pillar, in addition to this agency of people, is actually a democratic system of governance. And in Ukraine, and that's why I'm hopeful about the country, even now, during the war, and I looked at the last data, more than
last sentence.
More than 60% of people support democratic governance at the time of martial law, at the time when the country is invaded, and this is why I think we know that this system will overcome the totalitarian system of Russia and will actually free a lot of other nations in the neighborhood. Thank you.
That was a very hopeful last sentence. Thank you. Let me suggest we do a quick second round of questions, because I really do want to get all of you into dialogue with the audience. But let's see if we can do this pretty briefly. And I'll start, if I may, with Louisa, because clearly a multiplier and magnifier of agency is collaboration. So what would be your 3 top recommendations to build stronger partnerships and collaborations, both in Armenia but also across the Caucasus?
Thank you for the question. So based on what all of us mentioned here and based on my previous also remarks, if we talk about the win-win strategy, I would really recommend all the partners, be it a country or within a countries, to really assess all the potential risks and understand if they are going to endeavor a partnership. Because in real life, what we call partnership, it can be forced. It can be accepted by all the stakeholders without any force. So the first recommendation is to do a proper risk assessment and understand if all the stakeholders of this concrete partnership share the same goal and ambitions. Trust is of paramount importance. So all the stakeholders within the same partnership group must really trust each other and the process itself. Another recommendation that I want to mention, coming also from Armenia and from the region, is to really work on ensuring the culture of public-private dialogue. So this is something we really lack in Armenia, I can say, but from what we have observed in other countries is that if the country really has the structure and the culture of public-private dialogue, so in this country, at least within the country, we do observe a real and normal win-win partnership. I will be very short. So the third, to save time, so the third recommendation is to, for these kind of organizations like EBRD, is to really support the locally led networking events, initiatives, meetings, and like especially locally led, because local beneficiaries must finally have these capacities to organize and to build partnerships without any support. This like the dream destination.
So
Thank
really
you.
grassroots, bottom up. Let me also stay with the local perspective and jump back to Armin, if I may. And you know, you talked about tech. AI is clearly permeating every aspect of our lives now, and I think it holds opportunities, but it also holds risks. So I wanted to ask you if you could tell us where you see the main opportunities for applying AI to strengthen civil society here in the region, and whether you also do see some risks.
This is very fashionable question, because everybody now discussing this. And by my opinion, this is more philosophical rather technical aspect.
Okay.
Just yesterday we discussed with my colleague Ashot and defined that we are doing AI even 30, 40 years ago. But now we are speaking about this much more. So this is very huge development. We are developing AI, and AI is changing us. AI has many opportunities and much more challenges. The main opportunity is that with AI, we can do much more than we did before. And the challenge is that we need more and more knowledge to manage AI. Otherwise, at some point, it can manage us. And who will win depends on step we are taking today. And that's why I think, for my opinion, first of all, AI can give us addressable social services, especially for regions. AI can help optimize the delivery of social services such as healthcare, education, welfare. Predictive analytics can be used to identify the needs of each citizen, social group, and region, including cross-border issues. AI can help to optimize and allocate resources effectively, customize services to individual needs of each of us. And the next opportunity of AI is equal development. AI can boost equal development of different regions, overcoming digital inequality. Help doing some routine work from one side and fill the gap of qualified specialists from another. We know that we have lack of teachers, doctors, etc. in regions. And AI is very important there. AI technologies can empower isolated groups by providing them with access to information, resources, and opportunities. For example, AI platforms can facilitate skill development, job matching, and entrepreneurship, contributing to social and economic development of all groups. Challenge of equal development in AI is that unequal use of AI by regions and countries will deepen the gap between them significantly. And conflict resolution is another field for AI. AI tools can aid in conflict resolution efforts by analyzing historical data and identifying patterns and contribute to conflicts. This analysis can advise policymakers and civil society organizations on strategies for conflict prevention and resolution. Using AI can make decisions more objective compared to the situation we have now, when it is mostly based on subjective factors. AI could be used in the same manner for crisis management and response. Those are directions where I see huge potential for AI. AI-powered system can enhance disaster readiness and response mechanisms. Of course, every technology, including AI, is a stick with two ends. So it contains several risks and challenges. And the most important is ethical aspects. Very important to develop AI solutions based on universal human values and culture, taking into account ethics, mindsets, and traditions of countries, regions, and groups. On this aspect, I see Armenia as a homeland of AI with so-called human face. As Armenian diaspora living in many countries and regions can be the uniting ethical ground for local values and ethics of all those countries. Our union, UICT, being member of European Digital Alliance, is actively engaged in process of developing of ethical aspects of AI. I will try to be short as much as possible. And in AI era is trust and privacy are issues, because we see many fake news and content. And another one is monopolization of technologies. Because the technologies, especially hardware solutions in microelectronics and similar technologies, are concentrated in few countries and regions. That creates a risk of monopolization of advanced technologies. Currently, countries tend to develop their own technologies. One of examples is European Chip Act that promotes own chip development in EU. And language and cultural preservation is the last opportunity and challenge of AI, because from one side we can save the languages, unique languages and in unique groups, and from other side, if these unique groups haven't opportunity to access the AI, they will be in very bad situation. So we need.
I need to ask you to wrap it up so that we can be sure to get to the public. One last sentence.
Yeah. So that means we need to put much more effort than now to make AI tool helping to develop society and economy. We need to set up proper policy and strategy which can make AI future like sweet dream. Otherwise, tomorrow may be late.
So another topic on the agenda for dialogue with policymakers. Thank you very much. Let me ask both Orizia and Guyana to now take us into the future. And just a very quick question, first to Orizia, and then I'll go to Guyana. Given the situation we all are facing, and civil society especially, does civil society need to do things differently? Are there innovative approaches that you would say we must start to look beyond our conventional patterns and, here are 3 important things to do? Briefly.
Yeah, well, in Ukraine, people are saying civil society is not just a watchdog, it's a sledge dog. And I think this is a much more difficult burden to share with the government, but it actually is the call of the day, is because the old social contracts, the welfare states in many places, not just here, are falling apart. And you need distributed delivery of services, local governance, and technology that can actually enable reach equality that people expect. You know, expectations of citizens are very high. People want to have the best possible. So I would just say three things. One, we must, and this is what Luisa was talking about, partnership. The only way to achieve a multiplier effect of many ways we want is when we bring civil society, private sector, and government together. This is the only way when, you know, we can have like a leapfrog from, you know, very poor situation to an improvement. That means co-design and co-governance. You know, why Ukraine stands and survives is because of decentralized governance, because communities became stronger. And I notice here in the region, in Georgia and Armenia, this is not the agenda, but this must be an agenda. And this is where also civil society could play an important role in the community development. And the third one, again, I'm bringing back what Luisa said, it's about listening. We need to not just talk, we need to actually build this culture of listening, and especially in conflict-affected societies where people have trauma, we shouldn't go and tell them what people should be doing. We should first say, what do you want? And then this is an important confidence-building measure for displaced people, for companies who are losing their assets, for women and, you know, children who are staying without their, you know, father. I think fundamentally these are the three things that we all must deploy yesterday, tomorrow, because otherwise I think we'll not make it. It will be very difficult to make it, and it will come at a very high cost.
Very good. Thank you very much. And that certainly reflects what we heard yesterday in a panel on resilience. For example, veterans integration designed by veterans, displaced people support, where displaced people themselves are making the decisions and helping design the programs. Gayana, looking ahead, what would you say are the top 3 priorities needed to strengthen the resilience of civil society here in the region? And also, how can partners like EBRD help?
Yeah, thank you. Not to repeat to what Orissia already mentioned and other colleagues, I will just maybe give you one specific example. 2-3 years ago, in a war-torn Armenia, because there was a severe war that left the country with 5,000 people dead, etc. Mothers of the fallen soldiers came together and formed an organization, an NGO. I mean, they didn't form an NGO, but they wanted to get together to do something, and that something was not to raise the patriotism of the country, militaristic aspirations, etc., or revanchistic moods, etc. That was to use their pain to teach the societies that nobody deserves such a pain. So they formed an organization, came up with specific activities, and their major motto was to use their own pain to teach the world that peace is the only solution. So that was very difficult. And looking into the future, I would like to say the following. When you live in the conditions of degrading values and morals, it is people very often get accustomed to it. People do not like to be in a constant fight. Nobody likes it. So we fall silent, we become silent, we start getting accustomed to taking the new normal, even if it's the worst normal. And so, looking into the future, I would like to say that the civil society needs resilience, needs to keep its attention centralized to the moral values, to the civility of the issues, again, in the harshest situations, and needs support for this. It needs to improve its public image, which is very easily manipulated these days with any actors that is possible. It needs consolidation, it needs cooperation across sectors, like public-private businesses and across the region on issue-based aspects, for example, like the peace building or conflict resolution, or the maintenance of public spaces or anti-corruption, whatever. So if I may tell a little story about my friend's boy, who is maybe 9, 10 years old, was ordering food. He was starving, asked his mom, and this is a real story I heard a few days ago. So he asked his mom if he can order food through delivery. And the mom, of course, says, yes, why not? And so the mom is waiting and goes upstairs after a while, says, it's been 2 hours, why aren't you getting your food? And he says, look, it's raining hard outside. I don't want the delivery person to soak in rain when he's delivering my food. This is exactly the type of values that are genuine to the human beings. But if they're not nurtured, they degrade. And, they they turn into values that is very often very difficult to understand. So that is the type of support from small community-type actions that we do. And we have examples of, I see many colleagues here who do a lot of work in the small communities with specific groups. These are very important. So every little change begins from small projects, from supporting the value systems. But first we have to understand and formulate these values. This is where we need support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm very interested in what you said about resignation on the part of civil society when it has the feeling that it's constant conflict, shrinking spaces ever tighter. And just recently, I moderated an event with civil society organizations in Germany talking about their partners in challenged societies who said exactly the same thing from the other point of view. We don't know how to help them. We see exhaustion and resignation and even self-censorship in some cases because of concerns. And the awareness is there, but the open question, what can we do? So just very briefly, how would you answer that? What kind of message can I take back to them?
Well, that's a tough one. I wish our colleagues might hate, perhaps, from the audience.
Maybe some people would like to speak to that. So, good. Let's start right there. Can we bring a mic to this lady? And would you tell us who you are?
Thank you. My name is Hasmik. I'm from EBRD's Investment Council of Armenia, and I'm a strategic communications professional who is strongly advocating for trauma awareness. So I'm very happy that we heard a lot about how trauma awareness and conflict mediation have to play a role in communication. And regarding that question, because I've been discussing this with my colleagues from Germany, actually, and the question is, before, we have to look at the evolution of the civil society, how it worked. The civil society in Armenia specifically started after the earthquake and the collapse of the Soviet Union, so it was in a form of humanitarian support. What happened, the donors came to Armenia, they found organizations, they gave all the humanitarian aid, and these civil society organizations were distributing this support to the community members. Now, throughout the years, the nature of this support changed. It's not just helping people now, it's giving tools to help them. It's about advocacy, what we are talking today about, right. The public-private dialogue, and that in order for this dialogue to take place, there actually needs to be advocacy and strategic communication capacity within the civil society organizations. The donor community usually comes to Armenia or countries like Armenia with a certain and a specific project proposal already in mind, which sometimes is not based on the needs of the community. And then a lot of donor organizations actually, they do not talk with each other, but they do similar projects in the same region, in the same nature, and then it becomes competitive. Now, when we talk about dialogue, it's not about the dialogue between the government, civil society, private sector, it's also the dialogue between the donor organizations, so that their efforts are consolidated in the areas where they do their intervention, and also it's based on the needs of the civil society. So it would be very helpful if the donor community unites their efforts, they talk before starting the project proposal, they talk with the community, they ask what the needs are, and the proposals are developed based on these needs.
This is not a new topic on that side either, I must say, but thank you very much. You are certainly speaking to a very valid point. Short, if you would, because I've got lots of questions coming in here.
Just a very short one. So we have been working with the private sector associations, civil society, providing them the tools and knowledge on how to do the public-private dialogue. What we have observed is that the state also and the decision makers don't understand what the public-private dialogue means. So I would just add that there is also a strong need for Armenia to do the same capacity building for the decision makers as well.
Great, thank you so much. So I'm going to take a couple of these here and then also go back to some live questions. Here's one coming in that says, how can we all help the CSOs in Azerbaijan be empowered and have a voice in building a democratic state so that journalists or CSO activists are not jailed? Who would like to take that? Yes, please.
I can just briefly say that we have to walk the talk. We, and by that I mean Western, partners, donors, and institutions, especially such as European Union, that has a lot of soft power and a lot of public support in the region here. And I think we have to, if we are preaching about the democratic values and if we are saying that matters, then it has to matter also in how we do business. And I think this is where the difficulty arises, and the civil society sees the hypocrisy sometimes on part of big powers, not actually taking the side of values, democracy, and the compromises that it may seem like small at the beginning, but they lead to, small steps lead to big issues that arise then later on.
Yeah. Guyana, do you also want to weigh in on that? No. Okay. I will now take a question live. If somebody here has, yes, please, in the third row. If you like to share who you are.
Yes, I'm Ashoto Vanisyan, CEO of Synergy International System, an IT company. The relationship between the government and civil society organizations, I would say, is a matter of checks and balances. So nobody wants to be checked all the time. And some governments tolerate these checks by civil society. They call democracies. Others do not tolerate. They call autocrat. But there must be somewhere that they can coexist. And I think that some governments may have temptation to buy social society organizations' rights to be independent by funding them. And then if they fund, that they may then request some better attitude, right.
Quid pro quo.
There is another part that foreign organizations are funding because they don't trust governments. They want to go to civil society directly. But then these organizations easily labeled as foreign agents. So then what is better, to get both by government or be labeled that? What is happening now in some other countries, like in Georgia and others. So, and to be really independent, that's very difficult issue for civil society organizations. What your idea, like maybe Gayane can help to provide her input on this, how to stay independent, but at the same time, how raise funds.
Yeah.
Raise funds, good money, but independent money. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I'll try to elaborate on it. First of all, to maintain the balance of fulfilling your function, speaking with the government, but not becoming the government's instrument is at times very, very, because people who cooperate with the government sometimes you tend to minimize your power of criticism, for example. So that is a very good observation. Thankfully, Armenian government does not fund CSO so robustly in a big form, so that to say, oh, because you're funding CSO so much, we now will be very mild towards the government. But what is, there's a strange phenomenon. Before the revolution, the country believed that we have an oligarchy government that was not so democratic, so to speak. Civil societies were still doing exactly, putting the same effort into trying to dialogue with the government as much as they do now when after the revolution, when we want to believe that the government is more pro-democratic. So it's always the same effort, whether you want to believe the government supports the government is an absolutely different phenomenon. It becomes, it turns into another phenomenon that is hard to explain, or easy to explain, but long to explain, which we'll not do now. But yes, maintaining independence is different, but for that we need to develop our own vision. Mm-hmm. What is it that we are advocating for? And not to fall into the traps of not only the government traps, for example, to becoming friend, but into the traps of a lot of the rhetoric that is happening around us. And to just give, I think I'll stop here if I could answer. It's difficult, but having your own vision, developing your own strategies of what you believe in as an organization is very important. For fundraising, it's a different issue. Hasmik mentioned how donors are functioning. Donors are functioning project based on some specific agenda, which not always coincides what the countries really need at the point. So, of course, if it were up to me, I would say that donors need to put some effort into working with the government so that the governments maintain the freedoms and balance for civil society for good action, but at the same time speak with the civil society and speak more about a longer-term vision and issue-based support rather than
and as I understood Hasmik, also it's not only defining aims and vision, but also getting those skills, really developing the skills so that you can, when you're dialoguing with external partners, with potential funders, that you can make it clear where your lines are. And so I wanted to take...
if I may just make one more addition, navigating through what the government really does or want and going up and higher into what the society really needs is the key here. And once you develop and formulate that for yourself, then, the government is here, or it's even if it's not the government, specific circles that are against the democratic values or your vision of the societal well-being. It doesn't matter anymore because you have a vision up there already. That's what you are fighting for or working for.
So a comment from Orizia. Everybody wants to comment on this
just
one. So I'll take you in the order that you asked. So Orizia, then Louisa, and then I'll come to Armin. Yeah.
I think this is a very important question of indigenous financial base of civil society organizations. And in my mind, it's directly rooted in the constituency of those groups. Those groups, in order to have that base, must be grounded in solving a specific social need. And, in Ukraine previously, we also had problems of a lot of Western donor-driven groups that were not connected to society. And then there was a deliberate effort by funders to connect NGOs to citizens. And this is where also business comes in, because if you have a middle class developing in any society, that middle class has aspirations, demands, that sometimes it finds useful to finance NGOs to achieve those goals, from protection to animal rights, to cultural heritage, to winemaking. So it could be anything, because civil society is like a zoo. There are all kinds of animals there. It's not one type of activity. It's important. It's huge diversity. It's something also that we are not always comfortable with. But this is the way it is. And I think we should think about ecosystem. So you could have volunteering, promotion of young people participating in civil society. You could have, for example, a part of the tax allocated to civil society in Eastern Europe, for example, in Czech Republic, in Slovakia, that's called percentage philanthropy. You have to look at different ways of filling in, financial resources for civil society. But it's a very good question. Thank you for asking it.
Thank you. Luisa. Could we get
No, just to add two small remarks to also what you mentioned. I was going to say that the private sector can be this glue in between the civil society and the decision makers, the government. Whatever we have observed is that this private sector, when we speak about the elections, the reforms, the changes within the government, the CSO, citizens, we never ever target the private sector. It's like an island living in the same country, not participating in anything. So the first thing that I would really agree that the private sector could be this also sector that could connect everybody. But also to what Hasmik mentioned and the conversation started about the donors, we have recently observed that there could be some successful tools that some of the donors do apply within countries. This is this co-creation mechanisms. That is, the donors don't just open the call for the organizations to apply, but they just put the general message on what they want to address, and then they all gather the civil society, they work together on the NOFO, like the notice of funding opportunity, before giving this funding opportunity to the NGOs to apply. So this is a tool that I think at this moment, at this stage, can be really adopted by other donors as well.
Thank you. Armin. Then I'm coming to you. Yes, I see two more. That's probably all we'll manage, but I do want to get to those two, so go ahead.
I like to continue my colleague. One of problems can be professional unions, as our union, because we have our own budgets, our own money, so we're independent. And in many cases, of course, we have our problems, we solve problems, but in many cases we are acting as civil society organizations. So this is one of solutions I see.
Thank you. Very good point. Let me take this question here, please, and we will bundle the next two in order to be sure to.
First of all, thank you very much for presentations. I just will start from the last point that gentleman mentioned. I think that's very important to separate the professional unions from the civil society and understanding that we were talking about, because professional unions, they are protecting specific rights that private businesses cannot do themselves directly. That's the main purpose. And that's from what the NGOs actually started after the collapse of Soviet Union, as was quite rightly mentioned here. I was witnessing it since 2000, when we had only maybe in whole Armenia 3 to 5 NGOs which were really doing the NGO work. And others, sorry, this is another technology.
Your iPhone is listening to the whole debate.
Yeah. It's interesting who is listening, but hopefully in Armenia we don't have this law coming, at least for now. So what I wanted to say that from 2000, the international organizations started working with NGOs, and we developed really indeed the advocacy NGOs. But what is lacking, and what I was witnessing since 2000, when I was directly involved with the NGO sector, is that... Sorry, somebody is listening and wanted to stop talking, but I will continue anyway. So I think the most important things which are lacking with our NGOs, and I think in the region and everywhere, first of all is sustainability, which brings the NGOs to be too much diverse, dealing with so many things which are not directly connected to their mission and their vision. Mm-hmm. And this is also talks about that some of the NGOs, mostly in most cases, the missions and visions are very vague. And it's understandable just to be able to squeeze into different grant projects which are announced by international donors, like the EBRD or any other donors. So what I would suggest from my perspective is to try to work with the NGOs, to the civil society. Civil society is a broader understanding, because churches are also included. I don't see here a representative of churches. So I would stick with more NGOs. Non-government or non-profit organizations, but to build the capacity to help to write the short-term and long-term strategies for the development, for the organization itself, including the also the strategic goals, objectives, and what outputs and inputs they need to have for the longer run, but also to help, I don't know, to create philanthropy. We don't have philanthropists in Armenia. I think in Georgia and Ukraine as well, there were, in post-Soviet countries, we never had this. So if in UK or in America, NGOs can survive on dues, understanding of dues is absent in Armenia at all, I think in other countries as well.
On donations.
No donations, the due, the membership fees.
Oh, membership. Yeah.
We don't have this understanding. Nobody would pay the membership. But this is a very sustainable... okay, tell me then which organizations these are, and then we can argue. But nevertheless...
No, you guys are going to network after because they're going to cut us off soon.
We have a networking dinner.
Okay.
What I want to say that the most important is the sustainability. That if there is no project, you can still continue to reach your goal. And this is, I think, the important thing. And then you will be unbiased. You will never be dependent on government. And the final point that I wanted to make...
No, I'm going to cut you off. I've got somebody waiting. I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay.
I think what you've said is very valuable and absolutely goes back to what we heard from Guyana. Clear visions, clear sense of mission and goals is absolutely crucial. So excuse me for cutting you off, but I have a young lady back here waiting. Young lady in red jacket. Go ahead.
Yes. Hi, my name is Taimina Yenokian. I'm Green Armenia. I represent Green Armenia NGO. Can I, in Armenian, do you have English?
We do have translation, but I'm also going to hope that our Armenian speakers will be able to speak to the... So, go ahead.
Հայաստանում մենք նկատում ենք, որ համաշխարհային բանկը...
One sec. Sorry, we're just going to at least get our headphones on. Okay.
Are you ready? Okay. Հայաստանում բանկերը, հիմնական համաշխարհային բանկը, նաև գուցե EBRD-ին կամ EBRD-ին գուցե չի մասնակցել, բայց այնուամենայնիվ հանքարդյունաբերության զարգացման ռազմավարությանը, մշակմանը մեծ գումարներ են տրամադրում, բայց մենք այսքան տարիների ընթացքում չենք տեսնում ճիշտ հակառակ ուղղությամբ կայուն բնապահպանական ծրագրերի կամ ռազմավարության օրենքի մակարդակով մշակման ուղղված ներդրումներ չենք տեսնում։ Սա մեկ դիտարկում եւ երկրորդ նկատելի է, որ Հայաստանի համար հիմա շատ հրատապ է Արցախից եկած փախստականների օգնության եւ սոցիալական ծրագրերին օժանդակությունը եւ բնապահպանական շատ կարեւոր հարցերի վերաբերյալ ֆինանսավորում դեռևս շատ դեպքերում հնարավոր չէ գտնել։ Որպես մեկ օրինակ ասեմ, որ Հայաստանում օրինակ մաքրման կայանների մասին, ջրերի մասին հնարավոր չի ֆինանսավորում ճարել, որովհետեւ առաջնային խնդիրը դրված է օրինակ արցախցիների օժանդակությունը։ Բայց մենք տեսնում ենք, որ դրա կարիքը կա եւ այդ ջրերից իսկապես եւ օգտվում են եւ արցախցիները եւ Հայաստանի մնացած բնակչությունը եւս շնորհակալություն։ Ինչպես լուծել այս հարցը։
Thank you very much. So, who would like... Guyana, you want to start?
I could... This is not a response to the question. This is a good question, of course, and I think I saw Artur Grigorian in the room. Hello, Artur, who's dealing with environmental issues. To just respond to this,
I would suggest, because literally I've been told that we have to end. Why doesn't Artur, is the name?
Yes.
Artur, could you connect up with the young lady to talk to her briefly? Yeah. No, truly, this is... Oh, you know each other. Okay.
They know each other.
Yeah.
To just mention one thing, this is a very simple question. If you ask the donors, they will say that the USAID right now is implementing a huge project on South Caucasus water resources protection or project. I think we are very often looking for thematic sources of funding here and there, but we, as an NGO sector, civil society, we have to have creativity to develop the desired changes into existing projects on opportunities. Even if, in the words, the title of the project doesn't say something, you have to be able to keep bringing up the burning issues into the table of various development sources. At least as we are an NGO, Eurasia Partnership Foundation provides also grants, and sometimes the nature of the grants, the proposals that we receive from the public is surprising. It actually discovers how many untold needs are there. For example, in Goris, we are right now implementing a project on the drivers, on the pedestrian security on the roads. I mean, you would believe, but the project we are doing is about community development. It's not about pedestrian or road safety. So being able to creatively bring and formulate your projects and ideas and, you know, seek funding is very important, but that's a different set of skills and opportunities.
But what I'm basically hearing is how important it is to establish, on the one hand, a clear vision and a clear sense of mission, build skills, but also the flexibility on the part of both organizers and managers, but also those coming with projects to make them workable for both sides. So, and that again is a skills issue in many ways. I am afraid that we will have to leave it there. I'm getting many signs from many people that we're over time, but it has been a wonderful, rich debate, and I would like to thank our panel very, very warmly. Thank you. And dear audience, many thanks for your participation and your attention and your contributions. And I'm sorry that I've had to be a little bit rude cutting some of you off, but we wanted to get as many voices into the discussion as possible. So thank you so much. And thanks to the technical team also for your patience. Excellent. Really interesting. I enjoyed it enormously. I really appreciate it. I'm leaving tomorrow at 4 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, terrible.